IWSA. But the last time I spoke in this audience was way back 3 years ago on the water problem of great water problem of India. Just like water, food, and clean air, education is a very important issue. And last 5, 6 years, I have been spending time in understanding the Indian education system, and a great field got opened after the unveiling of the National Education Policy 2020. And I'm going to share with you some of my experiences, my understanding of the whole issue. At the outset, let me make very bold statements. The India has seen about over 20 documents or policy documents or committee reports aimed at education reforms since 1835. It means that Indian education is a work in progress for over 180 years, and almost on an average, 9 years, you get some document for which is aimed at some reforms in our education system. It's also important to know what has been the history of Indian education. It is said that those who forget their history are bound to repeat the same mistakes. And while implementing the National Education Policy 2020, we need to see that we are not going to repeat the same mistake which we have been doing for the last 180 years. So please give me only 10 minutes to sensitize you on the history of Indian education system. The education reforms which I talked about in the pre-independence, there are so many of them. The formal education, or what we call as the English education, started with the English Education Act of 1835. There is a very interesting story behind this. When this act was enacted, that time Charles Grant, who was one of the directors of the British East India Company, made a nasty statement that when the English education is imparted to the Asiatics, their faculty of reasoning will open and they will come very close to be called as human beings. So the idea of English education was to civilize Indians. Unfortunately, that civilizing the natives, that is what they used to call about, we have continued that practice even today. When any student sits in front of me in my class, I start thinking that he is uninformed, he is uneducated, he is uncivilized, and my job is to civilize them. Never comes the idea that I need to empower my students. Well, the next was the Bush Dispatch, which paved the way for formation of universities in this country. And the Indian University Act was enacted in 1857 when 3 universities were formed: Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras. Interesting part of Indian higher education system was that the colleges started first. Elphinstone College, Grand Medical College, they started way before 1857. Initially, they were affiliated to the London University. And when the Bombay University was formed, they got affiliated to Bombay University. So our higher education system started with the affiliating kind of a system. This particular system has outlived, and the new education policy tries to is providing some avenues to dismantle this affiliating system. One of the irony, you can say that in somewhere around 1880, Stella Maria College was established in Nagpur. It was affiliated to Calcutta University. And then when Allahabad University was started, it got affiliated to Allahabad University. It was only the distance that mattered. And that is what decided the jurisdiction of our university. And in 1922, when Nagpur University was formed, Stella Maria College got affiliated to Nagpur University. So this has been the history of affiliation in this country. Then came the Hunter Commission in 1882. Many of us remember that Mahatma Jyotiba Phule made a spirited appeal to the Hunter Commission to include the skill education in our education. Now, the skill education, discussion on skill education goes way back to 1882, got never implemented. And this skill education now takes a center stage in the National Education Policy 2020. Lord Curzon in 1901 wrote a very nasty letter to all vice chancellors. And what he essentially said was that Indian education is nothing but rote learning, tabulated results, and passes and fails. There is nothing like a mental development of the students. And therefore, the Indian Universities Act 1904 was enacted. This got into a great trouble. But one thing that Indian Universities Act 1904 did at the behest of Lord Curzon was until that time, the universities were only the centers for administration and conducting examinations. The entire teaching was going on in the colleges. So Curzon insisted that the university should also do some teaching and research. And therefore, the universities took upon them the postgraduate teaching and research. That was as per the Indian Universities Act. The system still continues. Our state universities, you go to their headquarters, they will be doing only the postgraduate teaching and postgraduate and research. The undergraduate teaching is left to the colleges. And that's a great divide that has happened in the higher education. The next important was the Sadler University Commission in 1917. Again, the British government set up a commission. Sadler was Vice Chancellor of Leeds University to see how the Indian higher education can be improved. Now, Sadler, among many other recommendations, provided three main recommendations. One was introducing 10 plus 2 plus 3 system. Earlier to that, the students would get their matriculation, 10 standard, and enter into university system. Sadler said, no, you need to have some intermediate college where they can be trained better so they can appreciate the higher education better. So they came the 10 plus 2 plus 3 system. Sadler Commission also advocated that the affiliating system is doing great harm to the Indian higher education. And therefore, India should develop unitary systems, stand-alone university systems. And the third one was every university and college should have a department of education, and they should study the problems of teaching learning of the Indians, come up with the solutions, and do the teachers training. Unfortunately, except for 10 plus 2 plus 3, none of the other suggestions, recommendations of Sadler Commission were implemented. Now this policy now advocates that we need to have unitary systems and we need to dismantle the affiliating system. So you see that this policy essentially contains all those suggestions which were not implemented. And also the NEP 2020 suggests that every college and every university should have a strong education department. Then came the Hartog Commission. It's a very important observation this commission makes. It says that the universities are flooded with the men who are not benefiting intellectually and materially from the higher education. A student pays fees, but the society pays 5 times more on educating a student. And therefore, if these students are diverted to some other profession in some way, all that money can be saved. Those people, those students also will get benefited, and that saved money can be used for betterment of education. It was not done. Nothing was done in 1929 till today. But this policy, 2000, NEP 2020, now introduces the multiple entry, multiple exit systems with the skill development so that the students can exit at an early stages of their graduation. Zakir Hussain Committee also talked about the skill development and the Sargent Plan of Education 1944. This was for the first time Indian education was compared with the international education. And Sargent writes that the Indian education is 40 years behind that of Great Britain. And it would take 40 years for India to come to the level of the British education. Of course, we don't like such statements, and therefore the nationalists amongst us fought. They said no 40 years, and then Sargent Plan of Education reduced it to 16 years. Now, this international comparison, this policy makes, and it says that in next 15 years, Sargent Plan was for 16 years. Now, this policy says in next 15 years, we'll bring our education to the international standard. And after independence, there were so many committee reports and commissions, and Radhakrishnan University Commission 1948. I'll comment on that little later. Mudliar Committee Report 1952. What was existing as 10 plus 2 plus 3, Mudliar Committee changed it to 11 plus 4. And then the Kothari Commission report and the National Education Policy, it converted back to 10 plus 2 plus 3. So you were going back and forth in the school and school education. Kothari Commission report, a very interesting one. However, I can also make a statement here that in 1962, there was a report submitted to the British Parliament, which is called the Robbins Report. This was on higher education. And Kothari Commission report reflects many of the findings of Robbins Report. Then came the National Education Policy in 1986, remained as a policy until in 1992, Janardhan Reddy Committee took on itself to reorient it. By that time, a lot of changes had happened. And then we had, as usual, the Vision 2020 documents on science, technology. There was also one on education. And this envision that we will have by 2020 500 institutions like IITs and so on and so forth. And the digital education, a strong presence is there in the National Education Policy. This Vision 2020 documents, I mean, we are all scientists here, educationists here. It was founded on a wrong assumption. It assumed that India will grow at the rate of 15%. The economy will grow at the rate of 15% per annum. And therefore, the following things will be possible. But the economy did not grow at that level. And therefore, all that vision remained unfulfilled. And then came the Dr. Yashwal Committee report, which was basically to address the question of administering higher education. The higher education in India is fragmented, and that fragmentation started from the Radhakrishnan University Commission. And this Yashwal Committee report said that no AICT, no UGC, you should have one unique body which will do all that. And then came the Right to Education Act, and finally we have with us the National Education Policy. So you can see here the discussions of all these committees and commissions which were not implemented, they all find place in the policy document. Now, let me just take a few minutes to inform you of the status of higher education today. You can ask a number of questions. Does the current education make our students employable? Does it provide them the skills to enter the job market? Does it provide them the 21st century skills, which are problem solving, critical thinking? And then we keep on reading in the newspapers the challenges of employability, and every industry, every organization, they keep complaining that they have an acute shortage of skilled workforce in today's market. Now, this acute shortage has created three distinct classes in the job market. If you have high skill, you get high pay. You have low skills, you get low pay. And if there are no skills, then there is no pay. And this is how the job market has got segregated. So in the papers, we'll keep reading the newspaper that some student gets a package of 1.5 crores, whereas in other places, even getting a job of 15, 20,000 rupees is a difficulty. And that's the segregation we are talking about. Another question that you can ask is, why do our students desire to go abroad for education? In today's world, education is a commodity. If you provide me a quality commodity, I'm ready to pay the price. And in particular, Indian parents will pay any price for the educating their children. And this I have brought to you for an effect item from the Economic Times. What it says is that by 2024, Indian students would be spending 75 to 85 billion dollars annually on higher education abroad. Now, if you just simply multiply, take 75 billion dollars, it turns out to be 6 lakh crores. That's the kind of money we are spending abroad for educating our younger generation. And if you compare this with the provision on education in the union budget, which turns out to be only 95,000 crores. And we talk to the colleges, we talk to universities, and they will be asking for money from that 95,000 crores, out of which a lot of money will go for the school education and so on and so forth. We want a pie from there. We want the government to support education. On the other hand, look at this instance where 6 lakh crores, this sort of money is going abroad because we are not giving quality education to our students. And finally, just before this pandemic, what were the top career tracks? And I have just listed them the way I found them. They include all kinds of things from filmmaking, fashion design, animation, VFX, networking, information, security, foreign languages, social sciences, and humanities. And let's ask this question, which are these professions we are preparing our students? So society requires something. We are not producing students, we're not producing skilled manpower for those professions. And that's the irony of this whole education system appears to have remained stagnant. And finally, this plot, which I have been showing many a times in several meetings, that this is the working age population, which is working age population of India as a percentage of the total population. And this is where we say that 65% of India is less than 35-year-old, and we need to get demographic dividend. But that is not happening because although the working hands are increasing, the youth unemployment rates are also increasing, which are in 2020, that was around 24%. People say this is close to 40%. Now, before I begin the discussion in a formal way, let me bring to you the comments of Acharya Praful Chandra Ray, the first modern chemist of India, which he made in 1893. And you will find the situation today is exactly similar to what Acharya Praful Chandra Ray described about the students and education in 1893. What he says is, I'll read it out for you. It is enough to mention that the market value of an average graduate does not exceed rupees 25 per month. Barely 1% of them is successful in life in the worldly sense, while thousands rush to their doom thoughtlessly. That 25 rupees per month, you can now say 25,000 rupees per month. but that figure 1% of them are able to get that is still true. The college-educated Bengali youth could reproduce from memory notable passages from Shakespeare and Milton and quote ad nauseam Mill and Spencer, but at the same time would helplessly fail in the struggle of life. True even today. I do not hesitate to say that degree only serves as a cloak to hide degree holder's ignorance. He knows little and cares to know less beyond the irreducible minimum required for passing the examination. Absolutely true to even today. And therefore, he comments, and this is what we begin our discussion on. It is necessary that the attention of the country should be clearly drawn to the colossal waste of energy and national intelligence in the past by our scheme of university. Now you can see this is even today what he wrote in 1893 is true. And that brings us to NEP 2020. There are two main elements, and this we need to take care very. This policy, and this is one of the policies, or only the policies, which recognizes the circular relation between education and development. All earlier policies were talking about the human values and all that. They are important. But we need to make a direct connection of education with economic development. And that circular relation is like this. The education is supposed to produce human capital, skilled manpower, which will give rise to the economic development. And the education will also create new knowledge, which in turn will create new opportunity. And that's the part of research in the higher education institutes. On the other hand, the economic development will feed into the education by the investment for the improvement of the quality and quantity. And this circular relationship has to be recognized. I just give you two examples. The entire modern education system in Europe started with the first industrial revolution. The industrial revolution required skilled manpower, required people who follow certain rules, and they are punctual and they can do a job repeatedly without getting bored. And that's how the school as a system came up, where you have a teacher and therefore you have to listen to the teacher. There are so many things you have to keep doing repeatedly without getting bored. And you also develop relationship with your fellow students, and the school opens at a particular time, closes at a particular, and brings the punctuality. It's an ideal workshop for creating the workers for the industrial revolution. And that's how the school started. What about the higher education? Until 1839, the universities in Europe were still worrying about the philosophy, theology, and literature, languages, and all that. In 1839, a German professor started a chemistry laboratory at the University of Gießen. That is to train students in the chemistry and try out something new so that it can feed into the industrial revolution. And you know that the Germans were very strong in chemical industries. Because of that, university education started that chemistry and chemical engineering. That's how this relationship is established. The other way around, if you see today, if you take any QS ranking of the universities and just make an exercise that plot the highest QS ranking for any country and against the GDP per capita of that country, you'll find the exact correlation that those countries which have got high GDP per capita, their universities are in top 10, top 100. Whereas a country like India, where the per capita GDP is just about $2,500, we'll get somewhere around rank 200. So this is what we also need to understand. And second one, this is a policy in favor of demand side stakeholders. We say that education has stakeholders. And those stakeholders are supply side stakeholders like the universities, colleges, schools, teachers, non-teaching staffs, and so forth. And the demand side stakeholders are the students, the society, the all sectors of the economy. All earlier policies were supply side stakeholder policies. That is to expand education sector, take education to nook and corner of the country. Now, for the first time, this policy says, now let's work in favor of the demand side stakeholders. What students need, what industry needs, what services sector needs, or what agriculture sector. So these are the two important differences that you find from this policy and all earlier policy. Now, if I have to make a statement on in just one line, what is it? What is this policy is all about? This policy is for providing multidisciplinary education with the emphasis on vocationalization, skill development, 21st century skills, and provision for flexibility and Indian values. All that whole thing, 400 odd pages, basically makes a case for multidisciplinary education with emphasis on vocationalization, skill development, 21st century skills, and providing flexibility to the students and Indian values. Now, NEP implementation has two parts. As regards the higher education, that's the structural reform on one side, and on the other side is the academic reforms. I'm going to mainly concentrate on the academic reform. The structural reforms, they're pretty complicated. And those who may have time, on 23rd, I'm going to deliver a detailed talk on structural reforms as regards to NEP at CKT College, Panvel at 11 o'clock. But still, I'll sensitize you how difficult is the whole situation. And the purpose of this talk is to sensitize every one of you that if this policy has to be implemented, and why it has to be implemented, this may be the last chance for the India to correct its education system. Once the period of demographic dividend is over, that's going to be over by 2057, I do not think we'll have any chance to correct our education system. And the policy has problems, but still, implementing this is going to be a real tough task for the colleges, universities, even for the schools. And that is where all of us need to join these efforts. And towards the end of this presentation, I'm going to make some case for how we can join these efforts. So let me just briefly describe to you the structural reforms that the policy envisages. It starts with the premises that we'll end the fragmentation of Indian higher education system. What is that fragmentation? Let me first, the higher education in India is dispensed in variety of ways. The state universities, which are affiliating, the non-agricultural, agriculture, medical, technological, legal, and so on and so forth. These are all affiliating structures. Then we have central universities. They are unitary, except for Allahabad University. The private universities are unitary. Central institutes, IITs, NITs, and there are unitaries. And they are deemed to be universities, which are unitary. So higher education is dispensed through all these education systems. And what is that fragmentation? Now, when the policy was unveiled, people were giving wrong examples that if an engineering student wants to learn music, then he cannot do it. But that's an example which is out of place. Let me give you some good examples. I have a student in botany, and that student is in a state university, in a college. But that student wants to learn horticulture, floriculture, which is the applied side of botany. Then all those subjects are taught in the agricultural university, where the student has no access. This is the fragmentation. My physics student wants to work on the medical technologies, then he has no access to a hospital and all this, because they have got segregated. Engineering student wants to understand the patent laws, but he cannot take a course on patent laws because the legal universities are separated from the technological universities. So this is what is called is the fragmentation. And this fragmentation needs to be removed. So what the policy says is that all the state universities and affiliating colleges, which are about 800 universities when the policy was written, and about 40,000 colleges, all they have to be dismantled. And from that, you create 15,000 large, well-resourced, vibrant, multidisciplinary unitary institutions. So that is the first job. And what about the systems which are already unitary? They have to become multidisciplinary. So you read in the newspaper that IITs are starting medical education, agricultural education, because they have to become multidisciplinary. So this is what the policy envisages. Now, those institutes which are already unitary, they can become multidisciplinary. There's absolutely no trouble. IISc Bangalore is now going for a hospital and they will start a medical degree. This is pretty straightforward for them. What about these state universities? What about the colleges which are providing BA, BSc, BCom degrees? So many of them. What about the agricultural universities, medical universities? This is where the real problem lies. Now, the policy makes the statement, all higher education institutions to become multidisciplinary institutions with teaching programs across disciplines and fields. And how these multidisciplinary institutes are defined. A multidisciplinary institute must have departments in languages, literature, music, philosophy, Indology, art, dance, theater, education, mathematics, statistics. Pure and applied sciences covers all gamut of science and technology and medical sciences, sociology, economics, sports, translation, and interpretation, etc. So this is what so a multidisciplinary institute should have this structure where a student will have a chance to study what he wants to study. So now you can think what is the situation today is we have the university system here. There are colleges around the university. This is an affiliating system. What the policy says is you combine these colleges which are in the proximity. So here you can say that there is an arts science commerce college, there is an engineering college, there is a college of education, there is a nursing college. They can form now a cluster, and that cluster will be multidisciplinary higher education institute where student can take admission in any of college of this cluster and take courses, whatever he or she wants in the other colleges. There could be some instances where a single college can add departments and create itself as a multidisciplinary education institute. Well, that's also possible. In that case, this college, if it is only catering to the undergraduate degree, can become a degree awarding college. So these are all becoming universities. This can become a degree awarding college. And in fact, what is also lost in the interpretation is what will happen to the parent university. The parent university also has to do undergraduate teaching, but this has not been discussed even today. So this is that restructuring so that there is enough flexibility for the students to take up studies. Now let me go to the main topic, the academic reforms. And this is going to be a bit of discussion. The policy makes a statement. Credit-based courses, projects, seminars, all containing some skill component, then community engagement and service, environmental education, value-based education, students to be provided internship in research, industry, business. And this higher education institute will have a startup incubation center, research in humanities and social sciences. So that's a broad outline. The academic program, it provides a structure. We'll fill up those gaps a little later. Then you can have a 3-year, 4-year undergraduate degree with a multiple exit option and entry option. So ordinarily, a degree could be 4-year degree, where the student can enter first year and can exit in the first year with the undergraduate certificate. If the student continues in the second year, wants to exit at the end of second year, he will exit with a diploma. And the third year, if he completes third year, then gets a degree. And the fourth year is for research. Now remember, this structure is for all disciplines and all fields, not only restricted to science. If we're going to do humanities, I can do 4-year BA program, where the fourth year is going to be devoted to research. And then the student can exit with a degree with the honors. At the same time, it provides now a structure for 4-year BA course. That is, you have the 1, 2, 3, fourth year, you have the education, and this will be BA, BCom, BSc, BEd. It's an integrated program. And this program is important since after 2030, the minimum qualification for school teachers is going to be 4-year BEd program. And then you have flexible master's program. If one has done 3 years degree program, then the 2 years master's program, 4-year undergraduate degree program, 1-year master's program, or you can have integrated 5-year program. It also talks about, and which I'm going to touch upon a little bit, the pedagogy, teaching techniques and assessments, a joyful, rigorous, responsive curriculum. These are all words, but we need to take some examples. Important thing is it provides National Higher Education Qualification Framework, and which I'm going to discuss a little bit. Now, as you know that the entire credit system in the country, starting from first grade till MSc, PhD, has been made uniform. And this is what is called as a National Credit Framework. I'm going to deal with the National Credit Framework for the higher education only in this particular presentation. Now, let's say the basic definitions. The academic year is 2 semesters. 1 semester is 90 working days. And there should be an additional summer term of 8 weeks. This is like the IITs we have, that those people, students who fail in the first 2 semesters, they are given a crash course of 8 weeks and they are re-examined. And that is fast track mode to enable students to complete the areas. And important thing is, there is no distinction between curricular, co-curricular, or extracurricular activities. Everything is credited. Now, the policy says that how are we going to teach our students? What is going to be the teaching learning process? Now, here I have a table. There's a type of courses one can deliver, and what is the equivalence of 1 credit? Now, remember, uniformly, if the student needs to get 1 credit, he has to work for 45 hours, out of which some hours are hidden. You do not know. For example, taught courses, that is lectures relating to a discipline. I teach physics, I give 15 lectures. It constitutes 1 credit. Whereas it is assumed that if I'm given 15 lectures, the student will have to work for 30 hours. Homework, he has to do homework, he has to do the referencing and all that. But that work is not visible to me. And therefore, in terms of the taught courses, 1 credit equivalent is 15 hours of teaching. Other way of doing the teaching learning is seminars, discussions, presentations under the supervision of teacher or expert. 15 hours of participation is 1 credit. But for that 15 hours, the student will have to work for 30 hours, prepare slides and all that. But that work is not visible to you, whether he has really worked. So 15 hours of participation makes 1 credit. Laboratory work is 30 hours of laboratory work is 1 credit. Studio activity, those students who want to do music, dance, or anything, they can do this activity. 30 hours of activity is going to be 1 credit. Workshop-based activity, vocational or professional activity, 30 hours of workshop activity. Now here, the student's work is going to be visible to you. So that will be 45 hours. Same way, community engagement, 45 hours is going to be 1 credit. Internship, this all that work is going to be visible to you. So 45 hours is 1 credit. So now the summary of credit structure is theory courses, 1 credit is 15 hours of lectures. Practicals is 1 credit is 30 hours of laboratory work. And experiential learning, that is the hands-on experience that the student gets. He goes to vocational training, he goes for internship. There, the 1 credit is equivalent to 45 hours. And the national working hours are defined as 1,200 hours. So in the higher education, a student will have to work per year for 1,200 hours. And this 1,200 hours constitute 40 credits. And that you can now clearly see that if I have got 15 hours of lecture and I just keep lecturing students, 40 credits would amount to 600 hours of teaching. And that is much shorter compared to 1,200 hours of national learning hours. And therefore, any institution, college or university, will have to have not only the theory classes, but the practicals and experiential learning, all that thing, in a manner that you complete 1,200 hours of the national learning hours. And that is where this is not true only for science, but this is also true for languages, BA, BCom, everywhere. There has to be practicals, there has to be experiential learning in different ways. And then the policy also says you have skill courses, and skill courses, there will be a general component where 30 to 40%, where the communication skills, soft skills are to be imparted, and the skill component has to be 60 to 70% hands-on training. So that's the first structure. And now how this is proposed to be implemented. The year 1 of the college is at the National Credit Framework level 4.5. What does it mean is that the even ITI is at the level of 4.5. So they can take admission. Any student who has done ITI can take admission in the first year of any course, BA, BSc, BCom. What used to happen to the engineering, now this has been brought at a uniform level. So credit per year, 40. Now here, if the student takes 10 credit skill course, including 6 credits job ready skills, then he can exit with an undergraduate certificate. That you can see the 10 credit skill course, including 6 hours credits for job ready skills. So the 6 credits for the experiential learning, that makes it 45 into 6, 300 hours, and rest 4 credits into multiplied by 30. So 520 hours. If he takes skill courses, then he can exit with an undergraduate certificate. Second year, it is at the level 5. And here, if he takes, again, 10 credit skill course, including 6 credit job ready skill, then he can exit with the undergraduate diploma. Third year, there is no skill course. So the student can exit with a bachelor's degree. In the 4th year, which is level 6, here, the 4th year of the degree with honors, or postgraduate first year, or postgraduate second year, and postgraduate engineering first year, and postgraduate engineering second year. So that's the way now, the options which are. What does this achieve if it is implemented in letter and spirit? Is the Hartog Commission's observation. The education system should be pyramidal. There will be a lot of intake at the base level, where the students much of opportunity to exit. Not everybody should go on the top. The students, I jokingly tell my colleagues in IIT Bombay that, look, every student sitting in front of me, I want to make him Einstein, but he himself doesn't want to become Einstein. He wants to develop some skills, some competencies so that he can get something outside. So this is the concept that is to be incorporated here. Now we come to the important issue and curriculum framework. There have been a lot of discussions and criticism. And what is going to be the course structure? Now, the UGC guidelines are a little difficult to follow. So I'm going to make some pictorial presentation. And for this, I'm going to introduce two types of courses. Institute level courses. These courses are common to all students, whosoever takes admission in your institution or college. BA, BSc, BCom, engineering, or these courses are common. And there are departmental courses, which are subject-specific courses. Now, here is your structure of 4-year degree course. There are semesters. The institute level courses, which are common to all students, are going to be in the first, second, and part of the third semester. Whereas departmental courses, this is the dividing line for 3-year degree course and 4th year. Departmental courses will begin in the third semester, and go on till the 8th semester. Now, at the end of third semester, each student will choose a major or minor. So there is some introduction of the department-specific courses has been done in the third semester. So he knows what he should be doing, and that is where he will choose a major and minor. And then he is going to be with the department, and department will take care of it. Now, what are these institute level courses? And then this is where large discussions are taking place and criticism. These are courses common to all students. Language education, 12 credits, 1 modern Indian language and English. Understanding India, 3 credits. Environmental science, 3 credits. Digital and technological solution, 4 credits. There are many more entries, but let's discuss this much. People have been saying that what we are going to teach in the language education. They have learned English. In Mumbai, they have learned Marathi or Hindi or whatever it is. What are we going to do? Now, those of us who have been guiding students without any battling eyelid, we make a statement that I wrote my student's thesis. The student knows English, but he does not know how to write his paper. He does not know how to write his thesis, and we end up in doing it. So if you have a science student, teach him in this particular course how to write a scientific document, how to write a thesis, how to write this. This is not for teaching him ABCD. This is giving him a knowledge of how to use the language in the field of his work. Understanding India, and it also talks about the Indian knowledge system, environmental sciences, digital and technological solutions. Now, there is a big argument against this, that many of the students who are entering into higher education do not have maths in the 12th standard, 11th standard. How are they going to cope up with this? Well, here the idea is not that they will be made expert in machine learning or big data, but every student who wants to survive in a long run in the real world will have to know something about machine learning. What is the strength of machine learning, big data, or artificial intelligence? So these are going to be very, very introductory courses to sensitize him. Mathematical and computational thinking and analysis. Here again, there is a problem. The teachers keep criticizing those students who do not have 11, 12 mathematics. What are we going to teach them? And those who have already done maths in 10, why are we going to repeat it? But I'm going to take this discussion little later on this particular issue. Health and wellness, yoga education, 2 credits, community engagement, 4 credits. And at the end of the second semester, if the student wants to exit first year, then he has to take the skill-based internship. In the semester 3, you have the departmental courses. These are the prerequisites for the major and minor. The natural sciences, social sciences, humanities, or you could even choose interdisciplinary courses. So that covers the semester 3. Here, the student has chosen major and minor. Now, in the semesters 4, 5, 6, the disciplinary, interdisciplinary major 48 credits and minor for 32 credits. This minor can be split into two. You can take two minors. Student can take vocational education at the 16 credit, 16 credits he can take another minor. Field-based learning, 4 credits. And if the student wants to exit after second year, then in the 4th semester, until that time, he has to do that skill-based internship 10 credits. And 7 and 8, this is the 4-year degree program. At the beginning of the 7th semester, student will take a research project. Then in the 7-8 semester, you have the advanced courses, research methodology courses. And the final semester will be exclusively to the research project. Now, people have been arguing that are we not diluting the core subjects by introducing all this? Let me give you a comparison. What has been happening in IITs? When IITs also did a study of the credit system of the top-notch universities in the world. In Caltech, out of 108 credits, out of 496 credits, that is 21%, are for non-core subjects, all humanities, economics, and so on. MIT, this percentage is 26%. And therefore, IITs have also started a large number of humanities, arts, social sciences, management, entrepreneurship, design programs, and artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, management, entrepreneurship courses that are common to all students. Now, let me come to some misconception. Mathematical and computational thinking and analysis, this is for 3 credits to be introduced in the first 2 semesters. Now, this does not mean, see, there is an emphasis, it's a thinking. We are not supposed to teach students at that level integration, differentiation, or finding out roots of a cubic equation or a quadratic equation. That's not the idea. It's the thinking. Can he think mathematically? Can he think and compute something? There are plenty of examples you can give, and this course is a very important one. And this is where the scientists, you can contribute to designing such courses. Let me give you one example. The mistakes we keep doing and the way we are cheated in life. Well, just take one example. We know that there is global warming because of the carbon dioxide, and therefore, to mitigate global warming, let's plant trees. This is the statement we make. Now, for World Environment Day, we ask our students to plant trees and all that. We don't take care of those trees later. That's a different thing. But we want to plant trees. Now, if one has that mathematical thinking, one will ask the question, to mitigate this global warming, how many trees I should plant? And all the data is available if you search on the internet. Let me give you one calculation. And this is what I mean by mathematical thinking. To consume carbon dioxide around us, 730 trees are required per person. This data is available on the internet. Now you can know that in 1 acre, you can have 100 trees. So this will require 7 acres of forest land. World population today is 800 crores. So each requires 7 acres of forest land. Total land should be 5,600 crore acres. This is the land that is required. What is the total land on the earth? Again, see on the internet, it is 12,600 crore acres. That means if you want to mitigate the entire carbon dioxide, out of the 12,600 crore acres, half that land will have to be covered by the forest. But we also know this, that the 50% of the land is required for production of food. And the 50% of land, if it goes for mitigating carbon dioxide, then where are going to be our colleges, universities, our football grounds and theaters and factories? Then you ask the question, what is the fairest land on the earth? It's approximately 1,000 crore acres. You require 5,600 crore acres. So this is 18% of the requirement. So that is all. It is going to consume only 18% of the carbon dioxide. The rest of it is going to keep growing in the atmosphere. What is the moral of the story? Moral of the story is twofold. Well, we need to conserve or grow forest land. There is no denying we should plant trees. But the most important message that has to go to our students and to our population and all educated people, minimize your carbon dioxide footprint. That is what going to help us, and not planting trees. If you keep planting, that 18% will become 18.1% or 18.2%. It certainly will not become 50%. See, this is the way we are in the normal life. We are cheated by such statements. And this is where we need to put that mathematical thinking and analysis in the minds of students. This is no great mathematics, but it's only the question of thinking. Now, I'll quickly finish on the teaching and pedagogy. The policy talks about effective pedagogical practices, and therefore we need to phase out the conventional methods of teaching. What is the conventional method of teaching? You ask any teacher, how do you teach your students? He says, I teach the way my teacher taught me. Then you ask the next question, from where your teacher learned? He learned from his teacher. And then that whole chain will go to 1835 of the English Education Act. The students you have are the 21st century students. Are you teaching them with the 18th century pedagogy? So teachers tend to think that how they have learned is the appropriate approach. So they would like to teach what they know best as they were taught. There is sticking to what has worked well in the past. Where the students we are 21st century students, they are practice users of digital technology. They're impatient. They think learning must be relevant and goal-oriented. They like to be in control. They like choices. They are more likely to take risks. They are socially conscious. This is the group of students we are teaching with the 200-year-old pedagogical practices. And this is where we need to engage newer practices which have come in the last 50 years. The learning cycle, the engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate. Every teacher needs to know the Bloom's taxonomy, and then he can make progress in. So now the policy says that you have to talk courses, seminars, laboratory work, studio activity, workshop-based activity, field practices. It's pointing to the experiential learning, inquiry-based learning. You can also add the flipped classroom, and that's the way the students will have to be taught. And finally, assessment of students. Not much guidelines have come in that, but I anticipate the following guidelines are going to come. What I have brought to you is a qualitative statement from the policy. Students assess not only on the academic aspect, but broad capacities and disposition, emphasis on conceptual understanding, creativity and critical thinking, the Bloom's taxonomy, the regular formative assessments, and extensive use of technology. Now, if this has to be implemented, then we need to ask one question: why assess students? The classical thinking, what we have been practicing so far, is to measure individual students' achievement and rank them as per their achievement. That's why we want to assess students. The modern thinking is different. Modern thinking, the first is how to determine how well students are learning. That's where the formative tests are important. The assessment serves two purposes. It assists learning to measure individuals' performance and also to evaluate the academic programs. And it provides feedback to the students, teachers, policymakers, and public about the effectiveness of the educational service. So we need to now get into that mode. So now, and therefore, the formative versus summative assessment will work. Now, this I have brought to you from the international universities. The UGC is yet to give the guidelines, but most likely these guidelines are going to come. Something important must be learned from each assessment. One type of assessment does not fit all purposes. You take 10 examination in a semester and they're all objective type. This is one type of assessment. It will not fit all purposes. The information what you gain must help improve. The assessment practices must move beyond the focus on the discrete bit of knowledge to the comprehensive understanding of the student's learning. For assessment to be effective, student must understand goals of learning. And this is what we do not teach our students. If I am teaching a particular course, what is the goal of learning? Day before yesterday, I was talking to a group of arts teachers and said, you are teaching in Marathi, Santa Vangmay. That is, what is the literature by the saint? What is the learning objective? If you do not provide the learning objective, the students are going to rote learning. The Tukaram or the Namdev, they will do rote learning and answer your question. You must give them what is the goal of learning. They asked me what could be the goal of learning for the saint literature by our saints. I said, well, it's going to be very simple. In Maharashtra, in your Santa Vangmay, some Santa writes Abhanga, some Santa writes Gaulan, somebody writes Ovi. What is the difference between Ovi, Abhanga structure? This is the structure of language. So to understand, one of the goals of learning is to understand the structure of language in terms of the Ovi, Abhanga, Gaulan, or Bharut. There could be another way of doing that. Marathi's first literature was Chakradhar Swami, and then go up to Tukaram. It's a period of about 300 years. In the 300 years, how Marathi language progressed. That can be a teaching learning goal. So you should define what is the teaching learning goal. Then only students will concentrate. And also, there is first important thing is that examination should also end up in additional learning of the students. And this is just one of the slides there. The teacher must know the model of human information processing. There is an information coming, it sits in the sensory memory. If it does not go in the working memory, it's forgotten. In the working memory, it goes to the long-term memory. If it does not go, then it is forgotten. Assessment should not test the content of the working memory. Otherwise, a day before the examination, student is going to do that rote learning. And next day, he's going to answer your questions. And because all that information is going to be in the working memory, and it will be forgotten as soon as he gives you the paper. And therefore, the assessment should test what has gone into the long-term memory. And for this purpose, I like the way the 6 components of the A-grade physics examination in the United States is organized. See the different tests. Component A, coded answers. These are multiple choice questions, all to be attended. Component B, short answers. This weight is also given 20% here, 20%. Short answers with the structure components. There is a fixed space given. Don't write essays. Given 2 lines, write your answer in 2 lines. Comprehension. Analyze and draw conclusions from a set of presented data. So there is some data given. Now utilize whatever physics principles you have been given and explain that phenomena in short paragraph. Component D, practical problem. Short problems with the equipment set up in a laboratory. Component E, investigation. Investigate a problem of your choice. Full freedom is given to the student. And component F is a project essay. Research and write about a topic. This is where that statement gets qualified. One type of examination does not give you the idea of what student has learned. And now I will just try to amuse you a little bit after all this heavy discussion. And this is where the civil society needs to join. The policy makes a strong case for critical thinking and problem solving abilities. Now for that, we need to create examples. And this is where all of you can take up and create these examples. And these examples can be used to enhance that critical thinking and problem solving ability. What I'm going to present to you is just a simple case, which is at par with the fifth grade. But I have used this examination and the example sufficient number of times in the universities, colleges, even engineering colleges. And I'm sorry to say that students could not answer in the first trial. Now, the problem solving is like this, that I have got an oil drum and does not have a hook. Some of you might have heard me on this example earlier. Please excuse me. So there is no hook on that. So I want to fill in oil here and lift it by crane. So where do I attach a hook and how do I do that? It's a problem that comes in any workshop. Now, first thing is if I have to attach a hook, it has to be at the center of this circle, the top one. Now, problem is a practical problem. Now, how to solve this? It has to be solved with the knowledge that we have already got. So this particular hook has to be put at the center of the circle. So the problem boils down to simple geometry problem. If there is a circle, how do I find its center? You ask students, they tell us that you fold. So then say, oh, it's a drum. Tomorrow I can draw a circle on a wall. Are you going to fold the wall? Now, you wait for 5 minutes. There will not be any answer. There is a circle, where is its center? And then you prod them and say that, well, there is a simpler way of doing it. Draw a chord AB, then at a right angle, draw a chord BC, join AC, then AC is the diameter and center of that is the center of the circle. What I have used is the angle in a half circle is the right angle. But I just created that angle, right angle, and created half circle, decided the diameter and got this. Can it not be done? And then you ask the students that these are engineering students, mind you, is there any other method of doing it or this is the unique method? And then now they understand what is that problem solving, how to look at a problem with the knowledge they have already acquired. With this help, of course, and then they will come up with lots of solutions, draw chord AB, chord CD, take the perpendicular bisectors, they will meet the center of the circle, and they'll give me 10 to 12 methods. Because this is the way we do. We are good at repetitions, but not at the first instant, the original thinking. And that is what we need to cultivate. So we need to create this example. But suppose if I have these 10 ways of finding a circle, center of the circle, then I pose them this problem. Which of the solution is acceptable? The one which requires minimum number of steps will be chosen because we are talking about the efficiency. But then I say that out of your box, instrument box, I remove a couple of instruments and ask you to solve this problem. Can you solve? Well, that means you are imposing constraints. The real world problems are not ideal problems where everything is available. They're with constraints. So what is technology? Is to find an efficient solution to the problem given the number of constraints. There is no other definition of technology. This is the way we'll have to take it forward whenever we teach our students. And several of these examples we need to create. So the critical thinking and problem solving ability must be integrated with the classroom teaching. And for that, large amount of material is required. Can we produce that material? And then there is a National Research Foundation, which gives equal importance to science, technology, social sciences, arts, and humanities with an annual grant of 20,000 crores. But remember, it specifies addressing key societal challenges, sustainable development, linkages across academia, government, and industry. So it wants the researchers to contribute to the development. So this is my last slide. And this is Economic Times in April 12, 2022 reported this. This Michael Wesley, he's Deputy Vice Chancellor of University of Melbourne. And the title is, India's NEP has given foreign universities a license to innovate. And what he says is, We see the NEP as a license to innovate. I think that the previous to NEP, the ability to do creative thinking with the Indian partners was much more constrained, mainly by government policy. If you take a broad overview of the NEP, it is really India putting a flag in the sand and saying India wants to build one of the world's best higher education sectors. So who is reading NEP 2020? These are the foreign universities. Last week, when I was in a college, I showed this slide. That principal said, "Sir, what you are saying is right. My friend's wife is in the education department of some university in the United States, and that university is after that poor lady to get contacts with the Indian partners so that they can spread uh, uh, things here." So they want to learn about the NEP 2020, whereas in India, we are not worried about it. And they are doing it not for any other thing, but they are going to then design the courses. They're going to design all those problem sets for the critical thinking, problem solving, and they're going to sell us. The India's education sector is $500 billion strong, growing at 15% per year. And that's the money these people want. And therefore, I have been asking the academic chance, when are we going to innovate? Or are we going to just be on the buying side of the quality education? This particular quotation I like, and we need to create this sort of teachers. The best teachers are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see. It is your capacity, the student capacity and imagination to see the things. With this, I thank you, and sorry to take more time than what was allotted to me. Thank you very much.
Yeah.